I'm very excited to release this quick talk with the great Louie Simmons of Westside Barbell Gym. Louie's credentials in strength training spans decades. Many of you in the lifting and sports world probably have at least heard of Louie, but if not, then you're in for a treat. This interview could never do his resume full justice, so remember to check out UntoldFitness.com for links to find out how you can start learning about all of the teaching and knowledge that Louie Simmons can offer.
My name is Louie Simmons. I own Westside Barbell Club. It's a private facility not open to the public. I was a top 10 powerlifter for 30 years, from 1972 to 2002. Made USPF elite totals for 37 years. I hold 10 U.S. patents on lower back machines, hamstring machines, static, dynamic, plyo machines. I've authored 4 books, offering 3 more, and I have about 20 DVDs for educational use on our webinars. Next question.
What got you into powerlifting initially? Like, I know there's a lot about you as far as, you know, you had injured your back and then you got into some rehabilitation and lifting, and you read a lot about, I guess, the Bulgarian and Russian methods of strength training. But what initially got you into this whole fitness endeavor that you've been in for a very long time?
Well, I never did fitness. I did strength training. I'm a specialist strength coach is what I am, not powerlifting. Powerlifting just happened to be what I was.
Okay.
And 1966, I was an Olympic weightlifter. And I went to my first power meet in October 1966 because I was being drafted into the Army 1 month later. And after lifting in that power meet, I realized how much stronger they were, and I never lifted again. I went straight to powerlifting. And I was basically taught by reading Muscle Power Builder magazine with the old Westside Barbell articles in it. That's where I learned the basis of what I do. And then as the time went on, I broke my lower back in 1973. No one was going. I had the top total in the world for a while, 1635 of 181. And no one was going to fix it. So just by pure luck, I came up with reverse hyperextension exercise, which I'm sure people have been doing it overseas somewhere forever. But I came up with it. It relieved my back pain and actually started to make me strong. And I regained my back strength, and I was back to pulling 710 in 1978 at 195. And as late as I pulled 715 at 57 years old at 217, and 675 at 217 at 63 years old. And so basically, that's how I invented reverse hyper. I have 6 active reverse patents on that. And one of them's on a new air reverse hyper for medical use. So that's how I got into powerlifting, and then I went into special strength. 1982, I broke my back the second time, and I realized the way I was trained was totally incorrect, but I didn't know what correct was. I was using Western periodization. So I started getting into the Soviet method, started using wave periodization, 3-week pendulum waves, same one Alexis used to break 80 world records. And I started using a scientific approach to weight training, and it changed everything.
Okay.
And that's where we are today. So for 33 years, I practiced this system. Along the way, I've trained 2 Olympic gold medalists, a UFC heavyweight champion, a 70-10 shot putter, 10-17 collegiate sprinter, a high school girl that just went from 780 to 724 to 60, and she's a 200-meter specialist. A 17-year-old girl jumps on a 15.5-inch box, and an intern jumped on a 63.5-inch box. So that's pretty much where I'm at today.
Okay. And see, I made the mistake of saying saying powerlifting, but at the heart of it all, you're, like you said, you're basically a strength specialist, which you can basically use your information to train athletes of many different ranges and ages and genders in sports and things like that. And that's what your gym, Westside Barbell, in Ohio specializes in. Correct? You said it's invitation only, and basically
it's invitation. It's invitation only, yes, and the top 5 rugby teams over in Europe use my system. Many professional teams use parts of my system, and college teams.
So, how does someone, it's invitation only, how does someone get a hold of you to work out there? I mean, obviously, I'm assuming the people that you're taking on and training are going to be people, that are at elite levels of athleticism. But I know that you've trained people that, that start off, at least at a lower level, and through your strength training, they achieve great things. So I don't want to say that you're only getting, people that are already at a high level, but basically you're taking very elite level athletes. That's the kind of athletes that you train at your gym, correct?
Well, we have an elite level training system.
Yes, sir.
I've actually developed 96 elite powerlifters, over 140 all-time world records. All right. So that's basically what we do. I started Chuck Vogelpohl, and everyone took contests. Chuck probably broke 8 to 10 world record squats. Kenny Patterson is brought him in at 14. The youngest open world record holder at 20 years old. Joe McCoy, I started him at 14. He was open world champion at 19 years old. Dave Hoff, I started him at 15 years old. He could squat 400 at 19, squat 1,005. Now he's done 1210. He's the greatest powerlifter in the world, greatest full meat bencher, greatest coefficient total. Laura Phelps, greatest female lifter of all time, 1,800. Well, Hoff totaled 3,005 at 271. But Laura totaled 1,800 at 165. She's done a 775 squat, a 530 bench in that class, and I believe a 510 deadlift. So she's also the greatest squatter of all time, pound for pound, greatest bench presser, and also total. So we pretty much dominate the sport. Yeah.
Wow, those are insane numbers to think about, especially the pound for pound numbers from the female you were mentioning. That is ridiculous. You said she squatted 700 pounds.
775 to
775. Wow.
Yes.
That is insane.
It's all the pendulum wave approach. It's all the Soviet methods that I use. And a combination of Russian Max Everett and Bulgarian Max Everett.
Yeah, and I think anyone listening, that is not familiar with you and your gym, they can learn a lot about the fact that, the basic core of strength, can apply to so many different levels of athletics and sports, because what you're doing is, as a strength specialist in your gym is training for strength. But I mean, for so many different athletes that come in there, it's probably improving their overall performance in a variety of sports. I know that you've been, I guess I don't know what the title would be, but you've helped many professional athletes and professional teams, not just with lifting, but just team sports and things like that. Also, is that correct?
Yes, the concepts. Mm-hmm. Yes, the concepts. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
People don't understand. People think weights are heavy or light. They're not. They're fast or slow. Strength's measured in velocities. Explosive strength and fast velocity, and intermediate speed strength and intermediate velocity, and strength speed slow velocity. And when you realize that strength is measured in velocities, then you can start to get the true concept of how to become strong.
And at your gym, you guys really work on, like you said, the speed strength and your speed when you're doing your repetitions at various weights,
right.
Of course. Very interesting.
Yes.
And you've authored many books, and you have a lot of information out there. And in the blog post, I'll be linking information to you, so I mean everyone can find you easily and find more information on stuff you've done. But Louie, if we can, we'll just move on to your. We're going to move on to your one fitness tip. And like I had said before, and people that listen to the show know that I ask everyone just if they could only just give one really important tip that's sort of a piece of advice that's on the fringe. It's a little bit niche, that you wouldn't normally find, anywhere. It's just a piece of advice that you'd probably only get from working one-on-one with someone who really knows what they're doing. But what is one good piece of advice you could give?
Well, if you want to reach the top, you have to have a wide base. A pyramid is only as tall as its base. So you have to have great GPP, general physical preparedness. Like I worked with young kids as young as 10 years old. Basically, obstacle course stuff, push-ups, set-ups. They can't climb a rope yet, but we make them pull a sled by a rope. And a lot of jumping exercises. Flexibility, dexterity, mobility, hand and eye coordination, and balance are developed at a very young age. If you get so old, like you can get a 5-year-old girl to jump to a somersault on a 4-inch balance beam, but you can't get a 25-year-old woman to do it. So once you become so old, there's actually tasks that you can't learn. Olympic weightlifting, they have to start at 10 to 11. If you start from 13 to 14, they'll never accomplish the same standards. It's already too late. They have already missed the boat on some of the technical aspects that the human body is capable of. So basically, a wide base. Too many people raise their kid to be a football player, and that's all they play. They don't have a wide athletic base. They can only play football. Then eventually they only run so fast. It's called the speed bear because they use the same training over and over and over. In that case, you have to stop that training, do specialized work like lifting weights, pulling sleds, and so forth, and some depth jumps and some jumping, more jumping, and that's how you overcome how fast you run. You actually run faster by quit running. Football teams run their players way too much. They run them in the ground. If running made a football player, then they should recruit marathoners.
Uh-huh.
A football player is 4 to 7 seconds. All you have to do is recover under 40. That's all you have to do. To run gassers is absolutely ridiculous to do. What they do when they do all this running, they absorb so much oxygen, not only in the lungs, but in the muscle fiber. So you're really training yourself to be endurance-oriented, not explosive strength-oriented. More oxygen you have in the muscle, it has a tendency to be able to last longer due to collagen. You want explosive athletes. All they have to do is recover in 40 seconds. So, explosive strength comes elasticity, ligaments, and tendons. So there's a big difference. So when you do all this running, it's exercise specificity. A fighter, like an MMA fighter, we train Matt Brown, for instance, and he has to fight hard for 5 minutes to recover in 1 minute. That's all we ask him to do. We don't ask him to, fight for 10 minutes because it's only a 5-minute round. He is recover in 1 minute and do it over.
Wow. Okay, so your tip is have a wide athletic base, and you actually that's great. That's a great tip. But you actually you really kind of blew my mind there with talking about the children. I actually have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old boy, and you're saying basically, at least by the age of 10 or 12, you were talking about lifting, but by the age of 10 or 11 or 12, they really, at least by that age, should really have some sort of training in various types of, you said speed work, strength training, a lot of those basic movements at least, and that will actually, they'll carry that throughout their life at least, is what you're saying.
Exactly. It's proven. It's proven by science. Hand and eye coordination, especially stuff like that. Here we take young wrestlers, 10 years old, and they pull lots of sleds, upper body and lower body. There's no compression on the spine that way. So all it is, you build up their legs and arms and their cardiovascular system as well, and muscular endurance and explosive strength. And all it is an aid. It is no deterrent at all. And training a young child, being with resistance, has nothing to do with the height of the child. It will not deter height growth, bone lengthening. That's a misconception.
Really? Oh, wow. See, that is something that I thought was, and I thought that was actually true. And my main piece of evidence would be gymnasts. If you look at Olympic level gymnasts, the men and women, they're much more petite. But I had always thought that was, basically a consequence of a lifetime of, the strength training that they have done. But you're saying that that's not true.
It's not true. It's actually picking a model athlete. If you're going to be a gymnast, you have to be small in stature. A basketball player, you don't see a 5 foot tall NBA player.
Exactly.
They're tall.
Yep.
So it's a model athlete. You pick the large kids. They're going to go into a sport that's more that they can adapt to and be proficient at. You can't take a 6'6" boy and make him into a gymnast. It's impossible. So it's just basically being a model athlete, picking a sport that your body's type is suited for.
Okay, so basically,
that's the other way around.
Yeah, but basically, for example, the gymnast, by the time you have Olympic level gymnast, there's a certain body type that performs the best at that, and anyone else that is not of that body type, maybe someone that's tall and lanky, they would have been weeded out long before. They just wouldn't have been able to get that good and beat the other competition. By the time you get to that level, that's just the body type. Just like in basketball, it's mostly tall people that succeed. I'd never thought about it that way. I had never thought about it that way. I basically always thought that any kind of really strenuous strength training at young ages, could potentially, slow down like a growth development, at least as far as like your size. But wow, that's really good to know.
Any physical training actually produces growth hormone. It actually makes you higher, taller.
Wow.
But people that lift weights, they're the people that's not going to go in the NBA. In the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
I got plenty of guys, if they were 6 inches taller, they could have maybe played NFL football, but they weren't. They were 6 foot, not 6'6". And you don't see very few 6'6" power lifters. Although we have one at 6'9", he deadlifts 905, but that's an exception.
Uh-huh.
And he'd never be a great squatter. He's a tremendous deadlifter. Mm-hmm.
Wow, I never thought about that, but yeah, that's really nice to know. I'm gonna have my kids lifting weights soon. Then I had
Yeah.
always just thought, hey, I'll just hold off until they're teenagers or something like that. But no, yeah, that's really good to
Get them
know.
to pull sleds. Anything you can do, like in a gym, curling, tech deck, tricep extension, pressing over it, you can do it for sled with the second strap attachment.
Uh huh.
And then they just hook it to their belt and pull it. There's resistance, but no compression of the spine because the weight's behind you.
Wow. Okay. Really cool. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
We're going to move on, and Louie, if you could just just talk a little bit about any sort of failures or struggles that you've had in your career. Just basically getting to the place that you're at now. I know you have you have a lot of success, and you're pretty much world renowned. But what kind of struggles have you had along the way?
Well, in 1973, I had a 1635 total. In February 73, November 72 is the first Worlds. It was one of 16. I had 1655. The Worlds were one of 1635. So I actually had 20 more pounds of world champion. And then I thought my back was indestructible, but I broke it about a month or two later. And I was off on crutches for 10 months. And it actually took me until 1976 to rehabilitate myself with this reverse hyper exercise. In 1979, I tore my right bicep totally off, locking out the deadlift that had locked in second place in the senior nationals behind Larry Pacifico. They said I was done. 6 months later, I won the national championship, the third highest total ever made. And in that contest, I tore 2 holes in my stomach and a tendon on my pelvic bone. It wasn't hardly any gear there at all. And then, so I recovered from that. Then I pulled a 722 real quick. It does 212 body weight. And then I break my back the second time. And at that point, it's actually 1983, I broke it. And I had it diagnosed right before 1982. And at that point, I said, there must be a better way to train. And then so I basically dug into the Soviet Union methods and all the East Germans, the Bulgarians, the Russians, everyone I get a hold of. They were 40 years ahead of us. They still are. My training's 40 years ahead of everyone, I feel. And it changed everything in my life. For where I made when I was 50 years old, I was the 4th best total in the world in the 242s, which I should never have been in. I'm a little guy. 3rd best squat, and at 54, I was the 6th best bencher in the world. And so it just all I got smarter. I started using science. Everybody gets a degree in exercise science. There's no connection between exercise and science. I talked to an exercise science class, all grad students, and for an hour and a half, they couldn't answer one question. And I see this all the time when coaches come here. There's no strength training for exercise science degree.
Really?
There's endurance. There's no strength. Everyone knows endurance is developed quickly, but strength takes a long time to develop. You could take your 10-year-old kid and could run a mile right off, but your 10-year-old kid can't squat 400.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's basically how it goes. So you have to look at things legitimately and find out is there a better way to train. The problem in America, there seems to be a big division between coaches and science. I prefer science, not an opinion. I want scientific proof, not some coach's opinion. For instance, to run down a track, to run on track, 90% of the effort is just to overcome gravity vertically, not horizontally. That occurs to human locomotion, allowing gravity to, while you fall forward, actually have gravity to assist you instead of resist you.
Uh-huh.
That's basically human locomotion. I can't think of his name. Pose method. He talks about this, the pose method of running. He goes through this in great depth. Romanoff, and he's exactly right. On one of his DVDs, he sprints on ice just to prove a point.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah. So, there's a lot of things people take for granted, but I realized what I had to use. And when people ask me what book to buy first, I say a basic physics book. Understand Newton's laws of motion and understand how to develop kinetic energy. These are 2 of the primary things you have to have. And, so that's what we concentrate on.
Okay. Very interesting. And I present everyone with a certain tough scenario, and for you, basically, for your tough scenario, I figured you've already dealt with it, so we would just discuss your back injury a little bit, and that's a little bit of what you just spoke about. But I just want to ask you a few more questions about how you overcame the back injury. You said that you injured your back in 73, and then it took you
Yes.
in 76 you recovered. So I guess somewhere close to around 3 years of recovery. What did you do? Or I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it took me until somewhere in the 1974 to actually come up with this reverse hyper exercise.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't do a back raise. I would anchor my feet to do a back raise, and by putting pressure on my ankles to raise my body, I had excruciating pain. But I thought one day, what if I did it in reverse? And this is the safest way to train your back anyhow. I held my back stationary while my legs were hanging downward off the ground and raised it to the rear, pumped up my back, pumped up my glutes, pumped up my hamstrings with no pain. You see, that's the correct way to train a back. Open chain. Open chain meaning when you stand on the ground, it's not an open chain. But when you're laying on something, if your arm's hanging down and your legs not touching the ground, it's open chain. And when you do that, if you get on your hands and knees, you'll release the pressure of the psoas, the quadriceps. That's absolutely how reverse hyper works.
Okay, so it's almost, a little bit of decompression, but like you said, it's unchained. It really loosens everything.
And it is decompression. It's decompression, it's range of motion, and it's traction and strengthening, all wrapped up in one. So the more reverse hypers we do for strength, the better restoration we have. We do, for a person here that squats 1,000, he has to do 12,000 pounds of squats on speed day. His reverse hyper tonnage twice a week is 60,000 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Okay? It's 4 and 5 times what the squat volume is. At least 48,000. It has to at least be 4 times.
And basically, because of the decompression, that's why doing your reverse hyper machine it's different than doing like the back raises on. Is it called a Roman chair? Is that the kind of chair that people?
Well, you could call it a Roman chair. Yeah.
Yep.
45-degree hyper Roman chair. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's essentially a different thing than your reverse hyper. Like you're still compressing your spine. Yeah, it's the reverse.
It compresses your spine.
So yeah, because I was thinking about that recently. I was thinking about I have some lower back injuries and some herniated discs and things like that. It always pops up as a problem. But I don't, at the current gym where I go to, they don't have a reverse hyper. And I was just trying to get creative and think of, well, how can I do something similar? But I guess in essence, that's basically, you have to do that movement on the reverse hyper. That's like you're saying, that's how it works. That's with your back stabilized and your legs kind of hanging over without touching the ground. That's the basic meat and potatoes of that exercise, of how that how
right.
It works.
And to make a difference between a reverse hip extension, so your feet go way underneath your face. You have great range of motion. Your legs will go up underneath your face. That's where it rotates the sacrum, and it allows fluid to the soft tissue of the lower back and the vertebrae. Johnny Machino will do it. It's proven.
Okay.
We got 50 pages on our website to explain. It's even had a DMX X-ray, digital motion X-ray, with people using it who couldn't do anything, but they could do that. And those people had pins in their back.
Really? The funny thing is, probably the first time I'd ever heard of the reverse hyper was Joe Rogan. He's a comedian. He does the commentary for the UFC fights. He was speaking about the reverse hyper on his podcast about a year ago, and he said that was really the only thing that helped his back out. And I believe he may even have one of his own. You probably know more about that than I do. But yeah, I had heard it from him. Was the very first place I'd ever even heard of the machine, and I was immediately researching online. I was like, I got to find out about this.
Yeah, we do it 4 times a week, twice real heavy and twice light.
Wow, and that's what everyone says works. That's if you had got these lower back problems. Is it just lower back, or is it any part of your back that will help rehabilitate?
It actually is thoracic as well. It stretches out the thoracic because your arms are hanging in the front of you, and it stretches you out when you go underneath.
Okay, so thoracic, lumbar, sacrum, your hip area, all of that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And also one more thing about your back injury. Before, I was talking about it took several years of recovery. I guess for 1 year you hadn't even invented the reverse hyper. But as you were recovering, were you slowly building up strength and just training, building back up the strength that you had before, or was it kind of like or was it that it took a really, really long time before you could be active again?
I couldn't do anything until I started in reverse hyper. Couldn't do anything. I couldn't do a side bend, couldn't do a good morning, couldn't do a squat, couldn't do a deadlift, nothing. Until I come out that exercise and rehabilitated myself, then I was able to resume training again. Yeah, I mean, it made it possible for me to total elite in 5 weight classes. Only 300 people's ever done that.
That's crazy. So you were breaking world records, and then you break your back and you're injured, and it was a few years before you even, got back up to that level again. But I mean, you never gave up.
77.
Yeah, you never gave up.
It actually took me 4 years to get back to a high level. 4 years.
That's crazy. I think a lot of people would have just given up and just said, even if they could rehabilitate their back, they'd just be like, it's I've been out of the game for too long.
Yeah.
But of course,
I don't give up.
Yeah, you don't give up. Are you still lifting? I'm sure you still lift heavy. But
training my neck and my knees pretty shot after all these years. I mean, I had triple body weight. I was doing triple body weight squats in 1970, and I was doing them in 2011, and it just basically took its toll that many years.
Yeah, I mean, you still have. I'm not sure. You'd have to educate me. I'm not sure if they're records or not, but you have just ridiculous lifting numbers. Well into your 50s, and I would assume maybe even your 60s as well. But the numbers are just, mind-boggling.
Yeah,
if people knew.
I never held a world record. I don't believe in master lifting. But I was 17. I was as little as 7 off the world record squat years ago, and 20 pounds off another squat and stuff like that. But at 63, at 217, I squatted 730, 505 bench, and a 675 deadlift with me.
Gosh, that's
so
crazy.
Then my neck just got bad. It was because of me to pass out, and I kept trying, but I mean, it's just pretty much can't do it.
Yeah, and people that like I said, the people that have not heard of you should know that. I mean, you're a big guy and everything. You're a muscular guy, but you're not like a giant. Like people would think, a 505 bench and 700 squat. You got to be a giant, and like that. I think that attests to your training methods, how well they work. You're not, some huge giant.
No, I was a 181 with 2 hour weigh-in for 7.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I used science to do what I did. No one 50 years old had ever benched 550, and I ended up benching 600 because of my training methods. Because I had others do it. And I use my own training methods to do that. It's science. You got to be smarter than the weights, and a lot of people don't consider that. And I just use better and better training methods. I have a patent on a static dynamic developer. It's going to revolutionize strength training in America. You pull in a bar, it's unmovable, static, and then I release it with air pressure, and then you pull 30% for explosive strength, or 75 to 85 for speed strength, or if you want to use real heavy weights, super heavy weights, when I release it, then you'll go ahead and complete the lift. It's going to revolutionize strength training.
Really? Okay, I've never heard of anything like that. I can't wait. That sounds really innovative.
Used the system. Bonacek and Bert Prashansky used a system that was either pull on a bar, wouldn't move, then run over into 30% barbell, or do 1 or 2 reps with like 90% or above, and then run over to a light barbell and do it. This is far superior. Look, you can pull on this, and all I have to do is release the button, and you drive up. In other words, you put up full 100% muscle tension. Then I release it so you just drive the 30% like you've never drove it before.
Uh-huh. Yeah, okay, I can see what you're saying. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool.
That's how we got such great box jumps.
Uh-huh. That explosive strength like that.
For your readers, one in the gym, the Westside certified gym, guys gets on his knees with 310 on his back and then jumps onto his feet. That is explosive power.
Wow.
A lot of people can't do it with no weight, let alone with 310 pounds on their back.
And that's exactly the kind of explosive strength you need, not only for lifting, but, for a lot of sports, like football, is like you were saying before. Yeah. Well,
exactly.
I mean,
first step in everything.
Yeah. Louie, another question I ask everyone is to give a motivational quote that they kind of like. Is there anything that you could share?
A motivational quote?
Actually, I like what you just said a second ago. You said you got to be smarter than the weights. I wrote that down as you were saying it. I love that.
One of my favorite movies is The Shogun Assassin. And the Shogun thought his assassin wanted to kill him, so he sent ninjas in to kill the assassin's wife. And he wasn't there, but they managed to kill her, basically. And so the Shogun came in and grabbed up his young child. He was 6 months old or so in diapers. And he put a ball on the floor, and he put his short sword into the floor. And he told his son Daigoro, he says, Daigoro, you cannot understand my words, but if you choose the ball, you'll join your mother in death. And if you choose the sword, you'll join me, your father, on the road of vengeance. and he chose the sword, and his father took him out and killed a lot of people. But here at Westside, choose the ball or choose the sword. It's all out or get out.
Okay.
One way or the other. I can't have anyone, if you've got a half-hearted person, they're a terrible training partner. If in this gym, they have to come here for one reason, to be the all-time best, or I have no need for them.
So you want your guys to train at high intensity, no matter what the weight, no matter what the rep range, but basically to be fully committed and, just give it your all for, every second that you're in the gym, really be serious and giving it all of your effort.
That's why it's a private gym.
And that's how you create
Go to
champions.
the very top. That's right. That's why, we're lucky to have 20 people one time.
Very interesting. I watched the UFC event this past weekend, and if you want, this can be off the record. It doesn't matter. But I watched the UFC event this past weekend with Matt, and of course, he had a really tough fight against Johnny Hendricks.
Right.
I think Johnny came in with a really good game plan, but it was still a good fight. But I know that you helped train Matt. Does he mainly just do his strength training at your gym? I mean, obviously he has MMA coaching and training that he's got to do with sparring and game planning and all this other stuff in wrestling, jiu-jitsu. But I guess he comes to you for the strength training, right? And I'm sure you've developed a specific program for the sport of MMA. But is that correct?
Yes, his striking coach Dorian Price just walked right by me, and his wrestling coach Sabado's here, and so they spend a lot of time. But the coaching is coordinated. We had a plan. It just didn't work out. Matt Brown is not trained like any powerlifter because he's not a powerlifter. He's an MMA fighter. MMA, in my opinion, too many people make a mistake training their guys. If you fight a 170-pound man, you got to use 170-pound weights. You can't use 5-pound weights because when you get in the ring, you got some strong wrestler trying to throw you around. So you have to work against equal and opposite resistance for 5 minutes, and that's exactly what we do. I only tell you one thing that Matt has done. I'm not going to because Tom Berry actually does most of the training here. Tom is my assistant in my office, in my business. And Tom's a thought, and he pretty much takes care of that. I'll tell you one thing Matt's done, for any of your readers who want to try it. He pushed a wheelbarrow with 325 pounds on it, a quarter of a mile in 2 minutes and 14 seconds. Whoa. So we'll give you guys something to work for.
300, good Lord. So that's basically a lap around a track in 2 minutes and 40 seconds.
That's right. It's 400 meters. Yep.
Yeah. Everyone go try that and see how well they can do.
Yeah, give that a shot.
Yeah, but I had to bring up Matt Brown. I'm a diehard MMA fan. I'm a big fan of Matt. Of course, his fights are so entertaining anyway. So I just had to bring that up. I thought it was just so cool to speak to someone that helps train him.
I trained Kevin Randleman years ago when Kevin was UFC heavyweight champion.
Okay, so you had Kevin Randleman, Matt Brown, and you've had some other.
Eddie Weiland.
Eddie Weiland.
Eddie Weiland's coach is right here at my place right now from Indiana.
Really?
He's here visiting us. And trained Eddie Weiland. He's got a tremendous training camp out there, the way they do things. Very good. We trade ideas back and forth. He came here. I did a couple seminars for him, and he did very, very, Houston Gussick. He did he's got great comprehension of how to train. He does a great job with Eddie Weiland.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And Kevin Randleman, he wrestled at Ohio State. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
And Mark Coleman, they're good buddies.
So
Mark's, know Mark quite well.
So basically, they're in their home state. When they're working, whenever Kevin was working with you guys, and it's kind of I guess that's a really cool thing for him to have all that close to where he was either living or whatever. But
right, 10 minutes away.
Yeah, and if anyone doesn't know who Kevin Randleman is, he was completely jacked. Really, really strong, explosive fighter. I guess he fought at heavyweight, but nowadays he'd probably be a light heavyweight.
Yeah, he would be maybe 185.
Yeah,
nowadays.
You're probably right. He's probably 6 foot, 5'11", something like that. If I had to say,
yeah,
I'm
he's
not
not 6 foot. No, he's not 6 foot. And you remember one of his highlights was knocking Cook-Off out with a left hook in Pride.
Yep, I've seen that. Yeah, very. Anyone could get online, look on YouTube, or even if you have a Fight Pass subscription, you can see a lot of Kevin Randleman fights. He was a really, really, really good wrestler, and
a couple-time All-American. Same thing with DeSabado, Matt's boxing or wrestling coach here, Adam DeSabado.
Yeah, it sounds like you got a lot of good guys just from MMA alone that have strolled through there.
Yeah, right. It's interesting. I got a good Rob Pilger. Old School Boxing. You ever heard of that?
Uh-huh.
He's a good friend of mine. He's a crazy guy, but he's a real good friend of mine. Really knows his boxing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if a lot of people are on the East Coast, or not that Ohio is really that close to the coast, but anywhere in that part of the country, I guess your gym would be a great place to go. I mean,
well, we're in Central Ohio.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not really anywhere. I'm in Tennessee, so yeah, I'm nowhere near the coast, but people still say East Coast. So if they only knew how far away we were from the coast, But yeah, I know a lot of times, just about every time that you see Matt Brown on any sort of UFC promotion, he's wearing a Westside Barbell T-shirt.
Right.
So I know that obviously they really wear it with pride. But I don't want to keep too much of your time, Louie. We've been on the phone for a little while now. If there's anything else you want to talk about or share, you can, or you can share. Let people know how they can get in touch with you and how they can find you online and your website and all that stuff.
Well, they can find us at westside-barbell.com. But one thing I want to emphasize to all the people listening is coaches, athletes, high school kids, anyone, read a book. The problem with America, they don't read. Coaches do not read books. I have probably 200 books, and some of them in foreign languages. But they were mailed to me by fans of mine overseas just because of the illustrations or the pictures. And you have to read a book. You have to learn something. You have to advance your training constantly. And I can say proudly that I do that. Every day I read more books. I have at home where I write. I have 5 or 6 books out. I'm writing a sprinting book. I have one coming out next on all sports, the fundamentals of special strength for all sports. I have a weightlifting book done, just being edited, for American lifters because they're weak. They have to get strong. They got a major problem. When they clean weights, they can't recover from the clean. They have no leg strength. And then I'm writing one on sprinting, because I've worked with a lot of sprinters. I love sprinting. And but how do I think I know what I know? I read a lot of books, and then I put it in practice. That's how.
And if anyone goes
read a book.
Yeah, and if anyone goes to Westside Barbell, I know you've got a lot of articles that you've published that are on the website. I assume that you could probably find some of your books, and I think you even have online webinars. I mean, I think you have a lot of information. There's a ridiculous amount of education. Just if you go to Louie's site, westsidebarbell.com, and like I said, we'll have links to all that stuff so people can find it easily. But it's been great talking to you. I'm sure you're a busy man. I was really fortunate to get a hold of you, Mr. Louie Simmons. You're, like I said, you're pretty much world known for your strength training.
Yep. Okay. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
Yes, sir. Goodbye.